Chris Brickley doesn't work with just anyone. The elite NBA trainer, whose clientele includes legends like LeBron James and Kevin Durant, has built his reputation on extending careers and unlocking peak performance. So when Brickley invited Caitlin Clark into his training orbit, the impact was immediate and impossible to ignore. For Clark, fresh off a season compromised by poor conditioning and preventable injuries.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
This partnership is more than an upgrade. It's an insurance policy on her future. Brickley's involvement means Clark now has access to the same precision tools that keep NBA superstars healthy well into their 30s. And that kind of longevity isn't something her rivals are prepared for. What makes this move seismic is how it alters the long-term outlook of Clark's career. While most WNBA players remain confined to limited training ecosystems, Clark is leveraging her endorsements and her connections to access world-class expertise. That edge isn't just physical, it's strategic. The decision to train outside team facilities, despite possible pushback, reveals a mindset shift. Clark isn't waiting on her organization to catch up. She's forcing the evolution herself. And that's what makes her more dangerous than ever. Rivals are panicking, and they should be. Caitlin Clark just stepped into a completely different lane, and it's not the one they were hoping she'd take. The headlines might say training with NBA trainer Chris Brickley, but the subtext is a lot louder. What it really says is, Caitlin Clark is no longer operating under the same rulebook as the rest of the league. Because Chris Brickley isn't your average trainer. This isn't some off-season conditioning coach dusted off from the back of a staff directory. This is the guy NBA legends call when they want to stay legends. LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Carmelo Anthony. He's not prepping players to make the league. He's making sure they don't leave it until they're good and ready. And now he's working with Caitlin Clark. This changes everything. Not only does this partnership give her access to world-class, science-backed performance systems, but it also puts every one of her rivals on alert. Because Clark's rookie season, it didn't exactly match the hype. She came in with a mountain of expectations and an endorsement portfolio bigger than most veteran players. But her body didn't hold up. And let's be honest, everyone noticed. The groin injury, the inconsistent minutes, the strain, none of it was random. It was the result of poor training strategy. Her team's approach didn't account for proper adaptation. Rapid muscle gain with no time for her body to stabilize, no prevention measures in place. It was a blueprint for burnout. And that's exactly what happened. She was on the floor, but nowhere near the level people expected. The explosiveness wasn't there. The fluidity was gone. And the headlines quickly turned from future of the league to is she already hitting a wall? So what does Caitlin do? She sidesteps the entire system and links up with the most respected performance coach in men's basketball. That's not a tweak. That's a full career pivot. Brickley's not just putting her through sprints and weights. His methodology is built around one core goal: longevity. His training is tailored, strategic, and rooted in biomechanics. This isn't about working harder. It's about working smarter. Injury prevention isn't a side note. It's the foundation. Strength building isn't a competition. It's a process. And this is the kind of training that Clark's rookie season should have started with. Because if you're building your team around a franchise player, someone who's not just good, but transformative, you have to invest in their durability. You have to protect the asset. But instead, her original training plan pushed her body past its limits with no real exit strategy. It wasn't sustainable. It wasn't even thoughtful. And now, she's rewriting the plan herself. Let's not skip over what this means. She's choosing to train outside her team's facilities. That's not a small decision. That's a power move. It says she understands that not every resource under a team umbrella is actually built with her best interest in mind. She's not prioritizing loyalty. She's prioritizing her career. And sure, that kind of independence might ruffle feathers. But it also forces a bigger question. Why didn't her team offer her something like this in the first place? Because the truth is, most WNBA players don't get access to this level of support. They don't have the budgets, the freedom, or the endorsement deals to seek out elite training options. Clark's Nike deal and her backing from figures like LeBron James? That's what's making this possible. She's using the advantages. She does have to fill in the gaps her team left wide open. But here's the uncomfortable part. For other players, those same gaps still exist. Most WNBA athletes are stuck with outdated protocols, bare-bones recovery plans, and training staff that don't specialize in their individual needs. So when Clark goes out and finds her own solution, it's not just about her. It's a spotlight on the entire system. It highlights the massive disparity between the top-tier resources available to select players and the minimal support most athletes in the league are forced to operate under. It's a financial gap, yes, but also a developmental one, because access to proper training literally changes careers. It determines how long you can compete, how much pain you play through, and whether your body collapses under pressure or adapts and thrives. That's the edge Caitlin's chasing. And now, she's not just chasing it, she's owning it. And Chris Brickley? He's not just giving her physical tools. He's giving her something just as important, mental clarity and mentorship. This is someone who's helped top-tier athletes navigate pressure, branding, expectations, and the personal toll of being the face. That's exactly what Clark needs right now. Because let's not forget, she's not just another rookie. She's been positioned as the future of the league. Every game she plays, every move she makes, it's under a microscope. Every bad performance gets amplified. Every minor injury becomes a debate. That level of scrutiny eats players alive, unless they have a right support system. Brickley is that system. He's already proven it in the NBA. Now, he's bringing that same championship-building structure into Clark's world, and suddenly the odds are shifting. The WNBA isn't used to this. Players taking full control of their physical development on their own terms is still rare. The norm is following team-prescribed routines, staying local, and sticking to what's convenient or expected. Clark broke that model in one offseason, and that's why rivals are nervous. Because once someone breaks the mold and proves it works, it never goes back. If Clark comes back next season fully healthy, stronger, faster, and more balanced, that becomes the new expectation. It sets a precedent. It says to every other elite player, you don't have to wait around for your team to figure out. You can go get what you need yourself. And that's the real threat here. Not just Caitlin's comeback, but the cultural shift she's about to trigger. Because this move, it's contagious. Other players are going to see it. They're going to realize there's no rule that says they have to settle for standard issue conditioning. They're going to start asking themselves, what if I took that risk too? What if I prioritized myself like that? And suddenly, it's not just about one player leveling up. It's about the entire league evolving. And not because the system changed, but because one player forced the conversation. So now, there's a choice. Teams can cling to the old ways, demand loyalty to outdated routines, and pretend this is just a one-off. Or they can wake up and recognize what's happening. Caitlin Clark just raised the bar. She didn't wait for her team to protect her. She didn't ask for permission. She took the reins, linked up with the best, and built a new version of herself. Smarter, healthier, and infinitely more dangerous. And the message is loud and clear. If you're not preparing like a pro, you're not going to last. So if you're a fan of the game, buckle up. Because this isn't just about Caitlin Clark's next season. It's about where the sport goes from here. If this move sparks a trend, we could be looking at the start of a new era. One where athletes drive their own development, demand better, and finally close the gap between women's sports and the elite resources that have been gatekept for far too long. If you're fired up about this shift, don't leave without making some noise. Like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear this. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Caitlin Clark just flipped the script, and we're all watching the next chapter unfold in real time. Caitlin Clark just exposed the system. With one training session, one photo, one clip, one receipt, she pulled the curtain back on what's really happening behind the scenes in women's pro basketball. She didn't call anyone out directly. She didn't throw shade. But by choosing to train with Chris Brickley, she's making it painfully clear what she was getting wasn't enough. And now, the entire league has to deal with the fallout. Because this wasn't just a young player looking to level up. This was a calculated move. A player, still early in her career, deciding she wasn't going to gamble her long-term health and performance on hope. She's not hoping her team gets it right next season. She's not hoping her body just miraculously adapts to pro-level wear and tear. She's not hoping someone else fixes what broke. She's taking control. And when someone with that much visibility steps outside the system, it sends a shockwave. Because now the question hanging in the air is, why didn't the system protect her? Why does a player have to go to New York and pay out of pocket just to get the kind of individualized, science-backed training that elite male athletes have had access to for years? The answer? Because the resources have never been equal. And Caitlin Clark, by doing what's best for her body, her game, and her future, just made that painfully obvious to everyone watching. Let's break down what Brickley brings to the table. This isn't just about speed drills and vertical jumps. His methodology is about balance, structure, and resilience. Every workout is mapped out based on the athlete's unique body mechanics, injury history, muscle development, load capacity, recovery patterns, and most importantly, future goals. This is proactive, not reactive. In the WNBA, a lot of training is still reactive. You're injured? Let's fix that. You're tired? Let's reduce your minutes. It's triage. It's putting out fires after the damage is done. But what Brickley does is prevent the fire in the first place. It's data-driven. It's holistic. It's the kind of training that builds careers, not just prolongs them. Caitlin Clark didn't just sign up for a better off-season. She signed up for a completely different trajectory. And look, this wasn't some charity handout. She's paying for this with her own money, through her own endorsements. Because again, teams aren't footing the bill for players to work with top-tier trainers in custom performance facilities. Not in this league. Her partnership with Nike, her rising brand value, and yes, her backing from people like LeBron James are what made this even possible. That access, that independence, that's what sets her apart right now. Not just the talent, but the ability to invest in herself in ways most players can't. And that's where the conversation gets uncomfortable. Because now we're staring straight into the gap. The one that separates athletes like Clark from the rest of the league. The financial gap. The resource gap. The support gap. Caitlin can train with Brickley because she's in a position to afford it. But what about everyone else? What happens to the rookies without a shoe deal? The veterans grinding out back-to-back seasons overseas just to keep a steady paycheck? What she's doing is incredible, but it's also a reminder of how much work still needs to be done. Because if elite training is a luxury only a handful of players can afford, we're not setting the league up for growth. We're setting it up for attrition. That's not on Clark. She's doing what any smart athlete would do in her position. She's protecting her investment, herself. But what it should do is light a fire under league leadership and team management. Because this can't be a one-off. This has to become the standard. You want players performing at their peak. You want them healthy, consistent, and durable? Then stop cutting corners. Stop offering generic training plans and acting surprised when players break down halfway through the season. Start funding systems that actually reflect the science. Hire the experts. Build the infrastructure. Or get left behind, because clearly the top talent isn't waiting around. And to be real, they shouldn't. What Caitlin's doing isn't selfish. It's professional. It's mature. It's the kind of decision you expect from someone who wants a 10-plus year career, not a flash-in-the-pan run. She's betting on herself in the smartest way possible, and it's going to pay off. Because when she steps on that court next season, we're going to see a different player. Not a reinvention, not some dramatic overhaul, just a refined version of what was already working. A version that moves cleaner, faster, stronger. A version that's not fighting through pain or chasing recovery. A version that has been carefully built to last. That's what has her rivals spiraling. Because now they know the Caitlin Clark from last season, the one they thought they'd figured out, is gone. She's not just coming back from injury. She's coming back strategized. And that's terrifying. Because when you're dealing with someone who's already elite, the only thing more dangerous than their talent is their discipline. And Caitlin Clark? She's just shown she is both. So what happens now? Well, teams have a choice. They can either evolve and start supporting their players with real, long-term development plans, or they can watch those players go find it somewhere else. Because Clark just proved that loyalty means nothing if it comes at the cost of your body. She made a decision that was about preservation. And not just physical, but mental too. Think about the headspace of a player who knows they're doing everything possible to stay at their best. That peace of mind, that confidence, that's what makes superstars. That's what separates the good from the unstoppable. And she got there by leaving the comfort zone. That's why this moment matters so much. It's not just an off-season footnote. It's a shift in power. A player taking full agency over her future, aligning herself with elite tools and mentors, and saying, I know what I'm worth, and I know what I need. That kind of energy changes a league. So if you're a fan, pay attention. This is the start of something. Because once that door is open, other players are going to start walking through it too. They're going to demand more, expect more, be more. And honestly, that's what the sport needs. Women's basketball is overdue for this kind of disruption, for this kind of professional standard, for this kind of ownership of greatness. And Caitlin Clark, in her very first offseason, just kicked it off. So the panic from her rivals? Totally justified, because she's not just training harder. She's training smarter. And in a league where so much has been limited by lack of access, lack of funding, lack of support, she just created a new lane. And that's going to be hard to catch up to. You're watching a player rewrite her path in real time. Not because she had to, but because she could. And that choice, that's where the power lives. What Caitlin Clark just did isn't just bold. It's disruptive in the most strategic way possible. She didn't throw a tantrum. She didn't blast anyone in the media. She didn't demand special treatment. She simply left, quietly, purposefully, and she went where the expertise was. Now she's training with Brickley, arguably the most respected performance specialist in basketball. Not women's basketball, basketball, period. The same man LeBron James trusts with his body. The same man who's been behind the scenes helping KD, Melo, and countless others keep their careers going long after the league said they were on the decline. So now the question is, what does this mean for the rest of the WNBA? Because if Caitlin Clark's body holds up next season, if she steps on the court looking sharper, moving cleaner, and playing at the level everyone expected from day one, it's not just a win for her. It's a direct challenge to every team that's still pretending in-house training is good enough. And let's be real, it's not. The WNBA is full of elite talent, but the infrastructure around those athletes has lagged behind for years. Underfunded facilities, overworked staff, basic injury recovery plans repackaged as high performance. Most teams aren't equipped to keep players healthy over an entire season, let alone build them into decade-long cornerstones. So when someone like Caitlin steps outside that structure and gets premium-level care, it exposes everything. And what's worse for the league, at least, is that she has the means to do it. Her endorsements, especially with Nike, give her access most of her peers simply can't afford. That's the uncomfortable truth. Most WNBA players are locked into whatever the team provides because they don't have six-figure off-season budgets or billionaire backing. But Caitlin does, and she's using it wisely. She didn't splurge on flash. She didn't invest in image. She invested in sustainability. That's what makes this move so devastating for the competition, because it's not just a flex. It's a long game. Her rookie season proved what happens when you rely on conventional, outdated training. She was overworked, mismanaged, and injured. And instead of crossing her fingers and hoping year two would magically be different, she went out and made it different. That level of autonomy, that scares people. Because once players realize they don't have to wait for their team to allow growth, once they see what happens when you prioritize yourself, they're going to follow. And teams won't be able to stop it. We're at the beginning of a new mentality in women's basketball. One where athletes start building their own careers, not just following what's handed to them. One where the elite will have to think and act like professionals, not just players. And it's long overdue. So where does this leave the league? In a tough spot, because if they don't adapt, they'll fall behind. Players will start seeking third-party trainers, external performance staff, and holistic programs that teams can't or won't offer. And if organizations try to fight that independence, they'll lose their stars to burnout, injury, or plain old frustration. But the better option? Learn from Caitlin's move. Embrace it. Normalize it. Make advanced, individualized training accessible, not exclusive. Because if you want your league to grow, you have to protect the people who are the league. And right now, Caitlin Clark is leading that charge. Not with words, but with action. And whether you love her or root against her, you can't deny what she's doing. She saw the system for what it was, and she upgraded herself anyway. No complaints, no drama, just better decisions. So next season, when you see her back on the court, quicker, stronger, pain-free, understand what you're witnessing. That's not just a comeback. That's a player who took control. And everyone else, they're now on notice. If you're watching this thinking, this is exactly the shift women's sports needs, or maybe you're on the fence about what this means for the league, drop a comment. Share it with someone who's still catching up. And subscribe so you don't miss the fallout. Because Caitlin Clark just made the boldest move of her career, and the league won't be the same after this.